I'm a chemist from the professional background and a pedagogue, but have been in this business of sustainability consulting for about 20 years now. Started that at AOL. I'm not sure if you know that company. It is America Online. It was the internet provider in the about the year 2000. And now it has no meaning anymore as an internet provider, but at that time it was the #1 company for that. And in 2003, I started becoming self-employed first as a consultant, and then later on in 2007, I founded a consultancy within a communication company. That was quite a bit a tricky combination. And this consultancy is called Scholz Friends Reputation. So it is a reputation that is a bridge between consulting on CSR and sustainability and the benefit that you might gain from this on the communication side. So, but a bit more about this some minutes later. I will share some slides with you and give you an insight about what Scholz Friends Reputation is, and then I will talk about cases. So what kind of work can be done in a consultancy? And I would love very much to bring this lecture as much as possible to something that has a benefit for you. So please use the chat. And if there's something you do not understand or you need some deeper insight, please interrupt me and raise your hand. And yeah, so that I can add any information that you need to my lecture here. So I will start sharing my presentation, and let's see if this works as the technical check. Here we go. Could you give me a hint if you see a slide there? Yeah, okay, thank you, Laura. So, yeah, I already promised you 2 parts of the presentation. A first brief part is about Scholz & Friends Reputation, and I directly dive into that. So that is a part of our team, and in the upper picture you see Christiane Stör and Xian Mei. We together founded Scholz & Friends Reputation. I had no idea about consulting at that time, to be honest. So she was the one who had worked with Scholz & Friends some years before and knew the members of the board. We directly went to them and talked about our idea. What about starting a consulting business within this agency? And at that time, the CEO said, I have no idea what this is, CSR and sustainability, and I have no idea if this has any meaning to our business, but it sounds somehow interesting. So let's give it a try. And here's the field, just start playing. And we did that, and it seems that we are quite successful with it. Now we are about 30 sustainability consultants in our team. You see a part of those here in the lower picture. And what we do is, no, I skipped that. That is just for marketing reasons. But that is a bit more of interest for you. What we do is we look into processes of the company. That is what we call the sustainability foundation. So what is going on within an organization? We talk about strategy, the development of a company, about the performance within ESG, environmental, social, governmental aspects. Yeah, we talk about sustainability reporting processes, and we have a look to the positioning within sustainability. So what happens in the relation to society and to stakeholder groups? It's about communication, about corporate citizenship programs, about dialogue with stakeholders and shareholders, of course, and about everything that is linked with regulation. So it's about a solid foundation and the positioning of a company. And with a bit more going into details, you see these two layers, two levels of consulting work here in another way. And I'll guide you briefly through these 6 aspects that we have that make our portfolio as a sustainability consultancy. On the upper left, you see it's about strategy. So we guide a company through a process, and at the end they have hopefully best fitting sustainability strategy that they need in their context. The second is the performance that is shown via this strategy. So what is our non-financial performance, our ESG performance that is necessary for ratings, rankings, and so on. And we talk about reporting. So bring this into a very transparent product showing our KPIs, our strategy, our performance that we have in a way that can be used by shareholders as well as stakeholders. And on the right side, that is more the outside, the positioning part, that is about a lighthouse project and various ways of communication. It also covers sustainability marketing approaches. So we have a lot of brands that are quite keen about sustainability and how to use this for their purposes. It is about stakeholder communication and involvement, and it's about the regulatory side. So that is a portfolio at a glance. But to be honest, if a company comes to us asking for support, it's not just one out of those 6 packages. It's mainly something that brings, that is a mixture of some of these packages. And we try to size a supporting structure in a way that is with the best benefit for the company and its demands. Which kind of companies do we work for? Sorry, yeah, you have some of those, and you see there is no separate sector within that. So we have an expertise for sustainability in general, and we work for every kind of company that wants our support. Not every, but very many, with regard to the sectors especially, but it's also mid-sized companies. We have product brands within our portfolio and a lot of stock market listed and related companies as Volkswagen or Deutsche Bahn that you can see here, even Vonovia or Microsoft, but also family-owned businesses at the Otto Group. A bit we work for public authorities. You see here the Rat für nachhaltige Entwicklung, which is the Sustainability Advisory Board to the German government, and the Federal Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs that is in charge of CSR as the key ministry in Germany. And some rare NGOs we do work for, but mainly it's the for-profit sector. And if I do our portfolio in a bit different way, you see in the core there's a consulting, but it's also about specific topics, specific aspects that are in the focus on the customer side. So sometimes they want us to look for surveys and make stakeholder surveys. Sometimes there's a focus on human rights and human rights due diligence. You might heard of the legislation linked to that is in the market in Germany and the European level. Sometimes it's about impact, especially when it comes to corporate citizenship. So impact alignment for things that we do as a company. And sometimes it's more on the rating ranking side. It's about the financial market, sustainable finance and support that is needed there. And we have some other services that we can add because we are a part of Scholz Friends. So if it goes more into corporate strategies, brand strategies, we have the experts here in our house. If it goes into campaigning, marketing campaign, we have these experts that we can bring into our team for a company. And the same with employer branding or social media communication or events. So, but this is just an option to the companies. We try to make our team as narrow as possible, but we can broaden it and spread our competencies if necessary. So that's what I would like to show you about Scholz & Friends reputation. Is there any direct question? Then you might come up with that right now. No, then I directly jump into part number 2. So a bit about what's in it. So if we do consulting, so what comes up? There are 3 initial questions that we always ask in the first chemistry meeting or an initial talk that we have. And the first question that is always on the place is, how do we call it? Yeah, so are we talking about sustainability, about CSR, about corporate responsibility? Then it's ESG right now, that's coming up again. Some even talk about non-financials and then non-financial performance and so on. And the answer is, it doesn't matter. Yeah, choose the wording that fits the best to your company. And if you decide to call it ESG, then please call it ESG. I know from the academic level, there's a difference between, and there are various concepts there, either in line or a bit differing, but this is not relevant to a company. When I started consulting, it was mainly about CSR. And we figured out that in the German corporate world, the S in the middle always made people think about social issues. So they thought immediately about something like corporate citizenship. So this shifted a bit to corporate responsibility. On the other side, producing company, they come from environmental management. So they were more into the idea of sustainability. So Central European companies had a linkage to sustainability and sustainability strategy that vanished in at around 2005 and shifted to CR, so corporate responsibility. Now we have a renaissance of ESG again. Yeah, because the financial market is such a strong driver in the debate. So whatever you use as a company, do it, but be consistent in your communication. That is more important. Do not mix the various wordings with each other, but stick in one of those concepts. And the second question is, what is your business case? Yeah, we need to define a business case for you as a company in your branch, in your situation. And this is the highest hurdle that companies have to deal with in the beginning. How can we become a better company and make money in a better way? It's not always about making more money in less time. So the way of thinking about capitalism and the market is dramatically changing right now. And if you want to make a business case out of CR and sustainability, then you have to think about 2 levels. It's about what are the new opportunities that we can gain via sustainability. And second, it's about which kind of risk do we need to minimize? And both is a business case for a company. And you have to have a very close look to what is really relevant to us. I just put some bullet points here with under opportunities and risk, and we might briefly read those. For opportunities, it's, for example, just reputational capital of a company. The values of a brand depend on reputation dramatically. If you have a company like Apple, people say it's 80% of the value of this company is brand awareness. 80%, with billions of euro or dollars. But it's also about maybe customer loyalty, generating communication content, for social media communication or your internet or whatever. It's about product innovation that you might gain. Think about the social startups, that is all about product innovation or service innovation. Yeah, but it might also be about strengthening your employer brand, yeah, and getting the right people that you can hire if you have a good CR strategy. What about the risk side? If you have a deep linkage and relationship to your stakeholder, yeah, it's very good because you know what kind of demands are coming up, what are new developments that are coming, and you can anticipate those earlier than others. You know, it's about transparency that is required, and maybe it's also, especially with environmental aspects, about reducing costs. Yeah, very simple. So this just somehow what can be an opportunity, what can be a risk. Yeah, if you think about it in more detail for a company, you find various other ways of shaping a business case, and at the end, raising the performance of the company. The concept of this is done by the Reputation Institute. Yeah, I wrote the series down here on the slide. And the second is who is in charge. Yeah, and this is something that has shifted in time in the last 20 years, as well as a wording. And in the beginning of my career as a consultant, the CR or CSR topic was linked either to the corporate communication department or marketing sometimes, or on the other side, for the producing company, it was a part of the EHS management, so environmental health and safety management. The Q is for quality, yeah, for those who are into this kind of discussion. And then when the discussion about CSR by the CSR Green Book from Brussels became more and more relevant to companies, companies decided they need somebody who is specifically responsible for CSR. So a lot of positions like head of CR, head of CSR, appeared in the world, in the corporate world. Since I would say 1 or 2 years, this is shifted directly to the board and either to the CEO, or sometimes if there's a strong stock market interest in the company, it might even be that it's went to the CFO directly. And yeah, I still wait for the situation where the whole board of a corporate, of a company shows that this is a really cross-functional thing as digitalization or innovation in a company. Yeah, but now we reached that CSR or sustainability has become a topic with high relevance to the board. This is one of the drivers why companies really do a tremendous step into professionalization and using the opportunities that are in sustainability for their purposes. And of course, this is triggered by regulation. I'll show you a bit a second later. So these 3 questions at the beginning, and we as consultants need to know what is a wording, what kind of business case can be reached, and who is in charge of the topic. So otherwise we can't do our work. And I will guide you through some specific cases that we have done on sustainability strategy processes. You see here some of the companies. I put some real estate examples here on the slide, but not only, there are several others. And if I dive into the process that we offer to companies, you see here our kind of 4-step approach. Just a side note, you see that on these slides I switch between CR, CSR, ESG, sustainability, and I do it for purpose because I do not want you to get used to one of these wordings, because you have to be very flexible if you go to various companies. So now I'm talking about CSR strategy. That are always 4 steps that you have to follow. First is, what is the framework you're working in? Yeah, a good analysis, that is benchmarking, a SWOT analysis, and so on. And this sets the course for sustainability or CSR within a company. especially the regulation that is coming up is really important here. Second is you have to define priorities. You have just limited resources as a company. So setting priorities and do this in a very transparent, clear way is one of the success factors of a company. The tool that you use for that is a materiality analysis. And I'm not sure if you have talked about this yet in your courses. That is a quite good defined approach to define your material sustainability topics within a company. And I'll dive into this a bit deeper a second later. So if you have defined and identified your priorities for sustainability, then you go the next step. What is the pathway that you need to go, and what are KPIs that gives you the opportunity to steer if you're on track or off track? Yeah, so at the end, a company gets an own CSR roadmap. Yeah, there are just maybe 6, 10, 14 bold goals written down, midterm goals for the next 5 years. That is a typical time frame. And each goal is linked by a KPI, a very clear KPI that enables a company to steer and manage these goals. And then the next one is you need to make this public, your strategy. And the tool for that is a kind of statement for CSR or for sustainability, yeah, where you describe on your own your understanding of sustainability and what it means for your business. So these steps, this is what we do in this process is to guide a company through this process. Of course, we do a part of this analytical things, and we moderate workshops. So a company cannot delegate this process somewhere outside of the company. This is in the core of a company. And the workshop, it's often that members of the board are part of these workshops, and really key figures from various departments of the company need to be involved here, because this is a corporate strategy at the end. So if you know a bit about the process that we follow, then secondly, you have to be really aware what is going on the regulatory field. That is the reason why I put this slide into the presentation. You know, we see a dramatically increasing pressure from the regulator, especially from Brussels. And the people in charge in Brussels for sustainability and CSR, they did a very clever move some years ago. They switched from convincing companies into we use the capital market to bring companies into a more sustainable world. So what they set up is a sustainable finance disclosure regulation. Yeah, so the whole financial market now is more and more regulated, fostering sustainable behavior. And these investors here, they of course bring this way of regulation into their relationship to the corporate world. So if a company wants to get money to quite good conditions, they need to show to the capital market that via an ESG reporting that they are sustainable in a way. Yeah. So this is a very efficient trigger to bring companies into a more sustainable way of doing their business. And secondly, the regulation, the European regulator set up a corporate sustainability reporting directive that says to quite many companies right now, not only the directly stock market listed ones, that they need to report annually about their non-financial performance. So, and these two ways of reporting, one that comes directly from Brussels, and the other one that show to investors their performance to get good conditions in the capital market, they both need to be linked from the corporate perspective, that they do not do two separate reporting lines. And this is what, of course, is in the deep interest of a company, to align processes and to align reportings. Yeah, and our work as a consultancy is to support a company to bring these various reportings together. It's the same with the annual reporting. And you might have heard about integrated reporting. That is one of the tendencies that we see, that the annual report and the sustainability report come more and more together. And this is also in the interest of the regulator as well as of the investors, the capital market. Okay, that is a bit about the framing. Now let's jump into concrete cases. I took one of my really well-loved companies, that is Telefonica O2 Germany. And we've been working for them for 7 years now. And you see two milestones in this work. One is the Telefonica Responsible Business Plan 2020 on the left side. And this was the first time that Telefonica really used this approach of materiality assessment to define some rare, bold goals on sustainability. And you see there are 3 areas. I'm sorry that it's just in German, but as I saw by your names, that most of you might be able to read this. It's a responsible way of doing business on the left side, live and digital work, to strengthen that in the middle, in the center, and to care about environment and climate on the right side. And we have all in all 9 goals. Behind every goal, there is a clear target and a clear KPI to measure this. There's, of course, there's a second page. I skipped that here on the slide. So that was the first step, and that was quite a big move for Telefonica at that time. This Telefonica Responsible Business Plan 2020 worked for 5 years. In 2020, we went in another process together with the CR team and the board and other people within Telefonica Germany. And at the end, we published a Responsible Business Plan 2025. And you see the way how it is drawn down. This is a bit more modern and digital, and you can find it on the website of Telefonica Germany. And behind these various fields that you see here, there are 2-3 layers of deeper information, especially about the goals and the targets and so on. So this is an animated graph that you can see here. So, and these kind of processes, yeah, I love it, because you really, as a consultant, you can see that sustainability has an influence on how a company behaves. It does not make everything from one single second completely 100% sustainable, but it shows that the way how a company changes its behavior, how its business behavior goes into the right direction, and you can influence it to a specific degree at least. One other thing that is more and more important to companies, and I even took here the example of Telefonica, is dealing with ratings and rankings. Yeah, so we supported, for example, Telefonica in the last years to optimize their ranking results by just delivering the right information to those who do the ratings and rankings. Yeah, it's often the case that there are more information and more useful information there, but those who do this analysis on the raters side, they just do not find it. This is one job in that. And the second one is that if we know that the requirements of rankings are changing in the next step of drafting a strategy, we can involve these requirements into the strategy of a company. So that is a bit about the ranking side. And now I would like to guide you into the materiality approach. And right now we are in the middle of a new, I would say, new time of materiality, because the way how materiality is valued and assessed changed a bit. And what you do is you have a look at the various opportunities of sustainability topics, and you have to evaluate those by a two-dimension. One is, what is the business relevance of a sustainability topic? So if something is going on in the world, for example, let's make it very simple, climate is changing, has it any business relevance to the company and its business? What about, let's say, global migrations? Let's say the availability of specific materials. Has it any relevance to the business or not? So you evaluate the business relevance outside in. Something outside in the world is going on, and the effect is inside. And the second dimension is a so-called impact dimension. This is completely different. If a company does its business, does it affect something in the world? Does it change something for the people on the planet? Does it change the environment or the climate? This is inside out perspective. So we as a company are doing our business, and there are some effects in the world. And these two dimensions have to be assessed, and then the various possible sustainability topics are put here in this landscape. And those who are in the red underlaid layers, they are called material for the company. So if a topic is either very high valued as in the business relevance dimension or at the impact dimension, then it becomes automatically material for the company. How can you evaluate this? Either you do it in a scientific way, then it needs quite a long time and tremendous budgets from the company. So in most times you do it in a half quantitative way. So via workshops, for example, involving experts, asking stakeholders about their meaning about that. So these are well-used approaches to evaluate this. And at the end, of course, it is a decision of the company, but it has to be made transparent. So in a sustainability report, you will find this materiality analysis, and the assurance companies will have a look at this. Is this plausible, what a company has done? And this plausibility check by the assurance companies, I think this is a good trigger to prove if a company did it in a somehow appropriate way. And an example here, I took a more B2B company, Energy from Waste, is a Chinese-owned, but in Germany a well-known waste management company. With this company, we did a materiality analysis in a very detailed way. You can imagine there are a lot of environmental topics of high relevance for this, but also energy is dramatically important. And I do it a bit unsharp here for purpose, because I do not want to public all detailed numbers. And on the left side, this is the pre-report information. So if you do the materiality analysis, then you know what the focus of your strategy is, and the results are going in the sustainability report of EEW, of the company, and will even influence the content that you show in the reporting. Yeah, and the reporting standards give you the guidance, what is required, which kind of information is required for every single material topic of a company. So there's a linkage between your materiality assessment and the reporting content at the end. And of course, for your strategy in between. I do a stop before I go in the next part, because I saw there was a question in the chat.
Yes, there was a question on Telefonica. Yeah.
Yes, and it's often that companies do not reach their targets to 100%. Yeah, but that is not the purpose, because you have 5 years goals mainly. So you need to have a kind of roadmap for every specific goals, and every year you show how far are you. And if you know next year, for example, oh, we are not on track, then you have a look back. What have we done? What are our measures and activities that we have done? Can we somehow modify those? Do we need to skip a measure and define something else? And this is the way how it goes. So the purpose of these kind of roadmaps is not to have always 100% fulfillment, but to know, are we on the right track, or do we have to regulate something and to modify something, sorry. And this is the same with Telefonica. I think about 80% of their goals, they were mainly on track. But if you have some more ambitious goals, it's often that at the end you see, oh, the circumstances in which you work, they change over the years. So something is not possible anymore, or it's very easy to reach it. And then you can be more ambitious or even change your target if it's needed. But this happens in 1 out of 10 cases, I would say. Yeah. But you have to you need this kind of openness.
No, but I actually would also have a question here, because you just talked about materiality analyses, and this is one of my favorite topics. And I liked how you presented it as a tool for strategy building. And I don't know how your feeling is, but my feeling is that sometimes companies kind of underestimate or don't use the full potential of a materiality analysis, right? It's more used for reporting purposes and not really for strategy building purposes. Maybe you can comment a bit on that.
Yeah, I agree. There is this idea of, okay, we need to do this, and maybe somebody can help us with this materiality analysis, but then we just put it away and public it in our report. But this is not the way how it should be. And if they involve us as consultancy, we make it very clear that you have to align your strategy with the results of that. And this is the reason why I presented it in this way. There is an order in this. The materiality analysis is the starting point for the strategy. And the strategy needs to be published in the report. And otherwise, it does not make any sense. And we see that even the accounting companies, if they find a report, a sustainability report, where in the front part, a materiality analysis is presented, and the information in the main chapters do not follow this idea, they will blame the company. And I think we are now in times where this will not be accepted anymore.
There is another question in the chat from Luca. Do you think that one day regulators will establish a reporting framework for sustainability, which is as narrow defined as the current accounting framework?
Yeah, that is a good question, because there are two different desires in the heart of the regulator. One is to make everything as clear, as narrow as possible. Yeah, so this makes a materiality analysis obsolete in a way, because you say this is a defined number of 10 KPIs that you have to present and to publicate. And the second is that the regulator says there are so many specific circumstances for companies that we need a tool to make sustainability adaptable to every specific situation and every specific company. And this is what materiality analysis stands for. And at the end, but this is just my proposal, I think we will find something like in the middle, something in between. And the reporting framework will not become as narrow as the accounting framework. But this is my personal opinion. So I'm not sure there's another way, because we see that the European reporting regulation goes more and more into the annual reporting process. So whereas the Global Reporting Initiative, which is something like the Bible for sustainability reporting, is much more open to companies and their requirements. And maybe we will have a very narrow part of reporting that goes into the annual reporting that follows these kind of framings. And there's another kind of reporting that is more broader and more specific. Yeah, and which might be more useful for other stakeholders, but the regulated. Oh yeah, the EU taxonomy. I skipped that slide. I had one slide within it for the taxonomy because we can do another hour talking about taxonomy. Of course, that is something that is really important for companies. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the EU taxonomy right now. We have six environmental topics that will be defined very clearly right now by expert groups. And the companies are told to publish the amount of services or products that follow the requirements according to the EU taxonomy, starting next year. And within the following years, all 6 environmental topics will be defined in a way that companies should bring these kind of frameworks and descriptions into their evaluation of their own products and services. But there are so many open questions to that right now. If you go to companies, they all stand there with a big question mark in their head and do not know how to bring this idea into their daily business. So I'm not sure what is going on with that, but it plays a tremendous role in that, even if many questions are not answered yet. Does it? I hope that is enough for you right now. There's also the supply chain due diligence legislation and so on. There are some other regulatory fields that play a significant role for companies in the field of sustainability right now. In Germany too. So, okay, I'll drop into just to stick a bit in time, talk into corporate citizenship. This is the key concept that we need for corporate citizenship. Yeah, we need to create shared value, as you call it. So I do not go too much into details here. We need to define a social case for corporate citizenship. That is quite easy. But what is a business case then? Because corporate citizenship is never philanthropic. Yeah, it is a part of your business strategy. So you need to show that there is a benefit for you as a company, and you need to define proof points for the social case. Yes, it's just not to, oh, it feels good what we are doing. You need to have the proof points and the KPIs that you can even steer a corporate citizenship program as professionally as any other activity in the field of sustainability. So I skipped that. And maybe you've seen something like this in a slightly different way. So impact alignment plays a big role, and you need to gain the impact for the society and for the purpose of a project and for the business goals as well. And this is quite tricky, yeah, because normally a company has learned we know what to invest, and I just wrote down here some numbers, some figures, 0.5 million euro in 2022. Then we run the initiative, the program, and at the end we reach maybe 500,000 pupils with this program. But what does it say? Nothing. What has happened after the program? What has changed? What is the impact really in society? And this is the biggest question right now, to find indicators that show you that something really has changed. One project that we did here is HAMBURG PACKT'S zusammen. There's a double meaning in that, meaning we can do it together as well as we pack bags together. And there was a Corona charity action that we started 1.5 years ago when Corona time began. And there were initially 15 companies from the Hamburg area putting together their products and say, okay, we donate these kind of products. And at the end, more than 30 companies joined this initiative, all voluntary. We just ended up with 55,000 bags that were packed with products and delivered via an NGO network in Hamburg to more than 100,000 single persons in Hamburg that somehow suffered from this Corona situation. There were students, senior citizens, family with small kids, and so on and so on. So a really amazing company. And this is something really that makes your heart melt a bit when you figure out what to do. This was pro bono from us, so it was not a profit consulting work, but yeah, in Corona times, things were different. But I show you something different. There was a for-profit job for us. It was the Berlin Heroes that we did for a newspaper in Berlin, the BZ. And we created something together with our marketing colleagues. And the task was, we as a newspaper want to differ in the market as those who are really deeply involved into the quarters in Berlin. And the idea that we created was, let's shape and strengthen volunteering in the city, because Berlin really suffers from and many social things, and volunteering might be a solution. So the BZ offered a platform to match the demand with people who decided, okay, I might help, I might volunteer. And there was a poster campaign. This is the initial draft that was set up. We have a kind of the beer as a super figure, as an icon there. And this initiative has a single page for more than 5 years within the newspaper, where stories about which kind of help is needed, what happens as a volunteer action was published. So a very successful initiative in the city. And one of the key questions when it comes to corporate citizenship is always, can we involve our employees? So this is just one single slide. I will not go deeper into this, but it's so important to activate people if you want them to learn things, to change their mindset and behavior. So it's tell me and I will forget next day. Show me, maybe I'll remember, but if you involve me, then I will learn. And things may change on the midterm and long term. Yeah, so this is something we always suggest. If a company invests into corporate citizenship, how can we involve your employees? And the last, supply chain. So I again picked the example of Telefonica. Human rights risk assessment, that is what we did. And the background on that is the legislation that is coming up. So companies, bigger companies are asked to make a risk assessment over their whole supply chain. Where are human rights risks within that? And this is just the example of our assessment at the end, where we showed in which companies of the world, which kind of human rights are risky and where Telefonica should start some activities. And this is just for one product group of the company, because if you do it from a company of its own, it's becoming a really very differentiated and complicated thing. So you have to go step by step. And companies have to learn to think about the supply chain in this way, I can tell you. So there are a lot of things to do still. And it's not only about their suppliers. Even if the German legislation that is in place now says the companies, the bigger companies are responsible for first tier, which are the direct suppliers. But the European legislation that is coming up for 2023, the draft that is public right now showed that this should cover the whole supply chain. So where is the raw material coming from? From Kenya, from China, from South America, yeah, and how are the conditions under which people there are working. And I have a second example that is from the textile sector, a very small company. I'm sure you will not know that, Baller, because it's a B2B company, just has, I think, about 35 employees sitting somewhere at the River Rhine, close to the Dutch border. And the question that we have there is, how can we really benefit from our sustainable product range that we have? They really invested a lot into sustainable textiles, and they work mainly for hospitals and for hotels. So they have linen and so on, yeah, blankets. And have an excellent range of sustainable products. But of course, those cost a bit more, and they needed to convince their partners that they spend a bit more money for this kind of products and not for the conventional things. So how can we shape and strengthen this business model? And what we did, we made transparent how the value chain of textiles looks like in this sector. Yeah, and there are a lot of steps going on, and some are in Germany and in Europe, but most of them are somewhere in the world. And what is the role of their partners? And you see here that we involved into this supply chain hotel group, the NH Hotels, and also Alsco. I'm not sure if you know Alsco. That is a washing company, and they rent most of the textiles to hotels. So they play a key role. And if Alsco needs some new linen, for example, they can go to Baller and ask them, okay, what do you have there? And Baller needs to argue, please take those who are more sustainable. So they need to be aware of their role at that time. So setting up the poster and make transparent what is going on is one thing. And the second one is get the experience. So we did a road trip to India. And this was one of the really most impressive activities that I had in my consulting career. We went somewhere in the middle of India in a very rural area. And here you see us in a training center together with 6 people from their key corporate partners that were invited. They had to pay that. Yeah, it is, but they were curious about what is going on there and said, okay, let's go. And so we invited them, did this journey. And yeah, here that is more the theoretical part, that we get a glance of how the life of the farmers is and how they learn to grow crops in a biological way. And it's especially about cotton here, of course. Yeah, so this was a Chetna corporation, and they have own standard, and you see it goes very much about pictures because literacy is quite poor in this area. And then we went to the villages, yeah, and you can imagine how people from a hotel, from a washery feel in this kind of situation, yeah. And we opened a training center for the rural people over there. yeah, where they can learn all these skills and how to behave and how they can sell the cotton, the organic cotton that they have. And at the end, yeah, we even were invited to go to the fields and meet, especially the ladies working there, and to pick some cotton on our own. But that was not that successful, I can tell you. Yeah, so, but this very personal experience make it absolutely understandable to everybody that this needs to be done. And we have to support sustainable textiles, even in this kind of business that is with a very high pressure on budgets. So that was my last example. Now it's up to you.